The harder you try to control your life, the more it slips through your hands. The Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoyevsky once wrote that to be too conscious is an illness. Because the more I tried to optimize my creativity, the more I killed the very thing that brought it alive. I know this sounds crazy, but just listen. Dostoyevsky explored this deeply, especially with his character, the Underground Man, from his novel The Notes from the Underground. This character tries desperately to prove that he's not a machine, and that even through logic and calculation, he can still live a life. He believed that when humans try to act rationally and reduce themselves to a simple formula, they sabotage themselves, their creativity, their authenticity, their joy, and their livelihood. That's exactly what happened to me. So I deleted everything. Now, I'm not trying to say that you should be lazy, but you actually can use self improvement and things like this. They absolutely have their merit, but over optimization is a trap. And once you find yourself digging further into that rabbit hole, eventually there's no going back, and you do end up sabotaging yourself, your authenticity, and your creativity. And it's at the expense of you, your work, and the whole reason you wanted to create in the first place. So, in this video, I want to go over the side effects of this and what it means for you, how it reverses your creativity, your authenticity, and your fluidity, and why over optimization is a trap, and some of the side effects that go along with it. So it all starts with my story. Ever since I was a young boy, I conjured these vast images of stories and worlds in my head. And as a rational person, this always rattled me. I thought that I had a problem up to a certain extent. Once I was getting older, I thought that this would stop eventually. I had continued to think of these complex characters and these grandiose set pieces and these insane conflicts between all these moving pieces in a world. I would see the scenes play out in front of me. But then I realized that this was just a simple part of me, that this feeling was never going away, and it would always be there. And so I leaned into it and I let it rule me. So I decided to turn my vision into reality, and I started writing screenplays. I wrote screenplays for a little while, and it was great until I realized that when you submit to festivals, or if you want to put it on the blacklist, that you have very little creative control, especially if you want to have it turned into a real movie, because filmmaking is a director's medium. So I decided that I would just make the movie myself. And then eventually that turned into writing my own novels because a lot of these stories were too big, I realized, especially at my moment right now, to be turned into an actual film. I just wanted other people to see what I saw in my head and make that real. Upon thinking about it more, I realized if I wanted true creative freedom, I wanted people to actually see my work, I would need to market it in some way. So I started creating my own social media accounts. And at first, this was fantastic, but I'm really ambitious. And my ambition isn't a bad thing, it fuels my work. But when you began to lean into that at the expense of your creations, that's where it gets bad. I misconstrued the means with the ends, and I literally just began creating for the sake of creation and looking to the destination rather than the journey. I created for growth, monetization, strategy, um, power, and influence rather than the love that you feel when actually making something. That kind of sickness leaked into everything, and the love I used to feel for it, the creation and the authenticity, that stopped feeling like fun and it started feeling like more, well, work. It's safe to say I became miserable. I stretched myself thin. I studied engagement tactics, made a monetization plan, optimized my growth. I made spreadsheets, productivity plans. Really leaned into my self improvement. I was lifting, and I even tried to make like a plan and strive for efficiency in my novel and my short film too, which is a terrible idea because it completely undermined its quality. I would go to bed exhausted. I would wake up exhausted. And the worst part wasn't even the workload, it was the fact that I kept telling myself that this was going to be better. And I wasn't even effective either. Like, I think I had a maximum of 30 subscribers on every single individual account. I began measuring my novel by word count rather than actual quality. I began rushing the shooting process of my short film, and that didn't really do anything. In totality, I valued speed over quality, and that was my greatest mistake. Really, I just turned myself into a machine, and I no longer liked the life that I had intentionally created for my own enjoyment. And that's when I realized that I had to make a change. Let me be clear. Optimization, self improvement, and productivity are not a bad thing. They're not villains. They can have their worth. They're good up to a certain extent. But once you cross that barrier, once you make productivity your God, that's when it starts to destroy quality and then it starts destroying you as a person. You stop doing things for why you did them in the first place. And that's very contradictory, right? And I realized that when I was like, well, I don't even really have to do this. Why am I forcing myself to do something literally for the sake of making myself suffer? If you have a product, a job, an identity, a lifestyle, or a habit that you feel trapped by, you can let it go. You can break that continuum. You can dismantle it. What kept me stuck for a while was the sunk cost fallacy, the idea that you cannot abandon a lifestyle or belief because of the sheer amount of willpower and effort you've poured into it, even if it no longer serves you. That was me. But you don't have to swing the pendulum to the opposite extreme. You can still optimize productivity while valuing whimsy. You can be productive while remaining experimental, and you can strive for greatness while still having the love for the journey. Yes, it's contradictory, but so is life. You started this journey because you loved an idea and you resonated with it so much that despite the crippling probability of it succeeding, you stuck with it no matter how much people told you not to do it. You still kept pushing forward through all of the criticism, through all the judgment, and despite the low odds. If you believe you are creator, then be one. Create with identity, with emotion, with unique perspective. Embrace your flaws, your fragments, your obsessions, and your worldviews. If you truly care about what you're building, you won't be afraid to embrace fear, being slow, vulnerable, because that vulnerability is the point. You owe it to yourself to create, to be whimsical. Why wait? Why lie to yourself? Why create a mask? As Friedrich Nietzsche once said, become who you are. Never stop dreaming. I'll be here. Let's create something powerful. The right way.